after having no luck finding him in his office, I head to the only other place I assume he may be at this hour. The door to August's office is thankfully ajar, so I peek around the frame, finding Harry standing alone. He has a report in hand, his coat hung on the back of August's chair. He looks exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed. However, when he notices me, he still offers me a bright, earnest smile.
I can't tell you how relieved I am to see you safe.
My throat feels tight, and I can't quite place why. James is doing a good job of making it difficult for me to stop thinking about him. The pain I felt from his final moment was raw, like an exposed nerve. For some reason, when I think of it, I now think of Harry. I need to know why he wanted me to come here, why everything seems to point back to the man standing before me. I need to tell you something, but I need you to promise that you won't think I've lost my mind. Harry narrows his gaze, nodding once. Go on. I visited the graveyard a few days ago while I was getting my bearings. He stays silent, but I can't help but notice the way his knuckles bleed white as he tightens his fist. I felt an overwhelming sense of grief there, pain, a yearning for lost love, a sense of failure and a crippling sorrow. I thought nothing of it at the time. It's not unheard of those that have been murdered to feel scared or sentimental on their final moments, in my experience. But Harry drops his gaze, his bright eyes sad and edged with tears. My words threaten to catch in my throat, but I relent. The other night I visited again. It was almost like something was pulling me there. I heard more, not just a memory this time. He spoke to me. He looks like he's seen a ghost. He stares at me wide-eyed, quickly swiping at his cheeks.
Oh, James.
I got the horrible feeling that he's been waiting for this. I need to know. He nods, clearly understanding. Then he takes a deep, shuddering breath.
James was assigned as my very first hunter the moment we both graduated at 18. He'd shown remarkable promise in school, basically skipping all of the junior nonsense that they force on you.
I would say, looking at this white hair at the sides, that being 18 is quite a while ago.
I, too, had impressed, so we were placed together in the hopes that we'd become unstoppable. We were inseparable in the field together for decades, until I took this post as Lieutenant General.
A pause and another deep breath, one that shakes.
But, as well as being my subordinate, he was also my partner. My husband.
Oh. My heart sinks, bile rising in my throat. I've read countless reports about him, the infamous Hunter Lane over the years, but I've never knew his first name or anything about him other than his incomparable work. Official records tend to omit personal details for the safety of the hunter or enforcer in question, unless they become a leader like Harry. They were inimitable, the best of the best. Together they killed some of the most nefarious creatures in our history, and, without question, every young trainee aspires to be just like Hunter Lane. To think he's just gone, and what Harry must be going through. I'm so sorry. I had no idea.
For nearly 10 years, yes. But we'd known each other forever. I failed the hunter initiation quite dramatically, and he was taken away to his father's home country to train to become what I'd always dreamed of becoming. Life had other plans for me, but we still found each other in the end.
No.
He used to joke that we were destined. The romantic fool. I really don't think it's sunk in that he's gone just yet. I keep thinking he's going to walk through my door, covered head to toe in blood and grime, with a stupid, wonderful grin on his face.
I notice how his eyes light up when he talks about him.
They say that people deal with grief differently, but I haven't quite figured mine out just yet. I apologize for not telling you, but it was important to me that I could trust you first. My judgment has been impaired, I'll admit it. though this turn of events isn't exactly what I expected. All I can think about now is justice. About the others that died before him, and what we could have done to stop it. What I could have done to stop it.
What did he tell you when he spoke to you? His words waver, and he mindlessly fiddles with his wedding band, eagerly awaiting my response. I think about what Ezra said about being careful who I shared this with. Did that warning apply to the Lieutenant General of all of Ezra? I will tell the truth. He told me to leave, that he failed and that there's no hope. He swallows thickly, his expression unchanging. I got the impression he wanted to say more, but I don't know how he managed to communicate with me in the first place. I think he can only say so much before he fades away. It feels like a great struggle for him to reach out at all. I cannot explain it really. He closes his eyes tight, shaking his head as if he can't bear to her anymore.
I will need you to speak to Augustus about this. They know more about psionic magic than anyone here. I'm sure they'll be able to help you figure this out. I do not trust anyone else.
Then, a hopeful look.
Did he truly not say anything else?
He didn't. But the first night that I felt him, I could tell how much he loved you, Harry. You were all he could think about in his final moments. He laughs quietly.
Yes. Well, he's all I can think about too. A curse now, I suppose.
Silence hangs heavy between us, and I don't quite know what to say next. He looks devastated, understandably. He must have so much on his mind already with the latest murder, and now this. The way he came alive when he spoke about James didn't go unnoticed, and I wonder if maybe talking about him would lift his mood. There's a lot of hunters out there that can only aspire to be half as a brilliant hunter as Lane. I would love to hear what he was like, if you don't mind. Some expression disappears, and he seems to brighten up a little.
He was a cocky son of a bitch, but it worked well for him in the field. He was never careless, though. I often found myself watching him instead of paying attention to whatever was attacking us. Luckily, he could fight well enough to protect us both, or I'm sure we'd have been in trouble. A lot of enforcers choose to stay cooped up in a stuffy office away from all that danger. Working with James made me not want to miss a thing.
Sounds like a great team. He digs into his pocket and digged into his coat pocket, retrieving his wallet and pulling out a small, weathered photo. He pauses, staring me down as if he have reservations, but then he hands it over. Aww. It's of him and James. They look young, beyond happy, and impossibly in love.
We were unbearable to be around, I'm sure.
I study the genuine smiles and the way their fingers are laced together. I may not know James aside from the voice in my head, but I feel a strange connection to him, as if I've also known him forever. Thank you for showing me. He chucks the photo back into its place right beside a neatly folded up letter.
Well, apparently he appears to have taken a liking to you. It's only fair for you to put a face to the name, I suppose.
I wonder if he ever talked to someone else beside us. Like to Piper. He stares down at his hand, once again twisting his wedding band. His expression is neutral when he meets my gaze, but in a split second his disposition shifts to the stiff formality I'm so used to when dealing with figures of authority. I gather that our conversation about his dearly departed is over.
What happened tonight could have been prevented. It's unacceptable that we were so aware of the looming threat, and yet we let our guard down and lost another life. This cannot happen again.
I nod, agreeing wholeheartedly, but I cannot shake the feeling that, yes, this could have been prevented if it weren't for the festival. The festival he was so adamant went ahead despite other Clear's apprehension, including August. I think better of pressing the matter. Harry suddenly doesn't seem like a man willing to admit fault. Did you speak to the twins as I requested? I did. As I'm sure you expected, I didn't get much out of them. A quiet hum, which I think is an indifferent agreement, and Harry sighs heavily. They are rather adept at both lying and sheer avoidance. I am interested in speaking to the other brother alone, though. There was something off about him, like he just didn't want to be there. I also came across a letter outside the building, one that was addressed to him. The language looked demonic, I think. Harry nods, indifferent, and I wonder if he even heard me. He clears his throat and flicks his eyes to the side, as though he has no interest in humoring me any longer.
There's nothing more you can do here until we've identified the victim. Get some rest. It's late. You're dismissed, Hunter.
I wonder if he told us everything. Though I'm used to being addressed in such a manner, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't perplexed by the shift in his demeanor. I chuck it down to grief, just like he said, but I can't help but feel like maybe I've disappointed him somehow. I turn and I quietly leave. Snow is falling as I step outside. Though the hour is late, there's certainly no peaceful quiet in Lunaris tonight. The streets outside of the headquarters are bustling with hunters, enforcers, and everything in between. I keep my head down as I make my way toward the wolf. I fall into a trance as I replay my conversation with Harry over and over, trying to pinpoint the exact moment that made him change his attitude so drastically. I'm snapped back to reality when I bump into something cold and hard, finding a pair of familiar golden eyes staring back at me when I look up.
Distracted, are we?
No, I really love the artwork of him. I step back, brushing down the front of my coat. I can see that his lips are on the cusp of curling to the side in a vaguely amused smirk. You could say that. It's been a long night. He offers me a sympathetic look, shoving his hands firmly in his coat pockets as a duo of enforcers passes by. They make a point to glare at him and, by proxy, at me for being near him. Finn dutifully avoids their gazes like a man who has had centuries to perfect their feigning indifference to the people like me treat him and his kind.
I can imagine. I'm just glad to see that you're okay. I was worried for you when you ran off back there.
Yeah, also wish that moment could have gone on. Oh yeah, that. With the flare of adrenaline that the hunt had granted me, I'd foolishly almost forgotten about the stone promise of his cool lips against mine. Now, it feels like a dream as I stand on the snow-covered street, but Finn is all too real. I clear my throat, distracted by the thought of it. I'm sorry we were so rudely interrupted. He laughs, and the sight of his wide, toothy smile is enough to make me forget my troubles, even if just for a fleeting moment. Somehow, Finn always serves as a good distraction.
Nothing like a good murder to ruin such a moment, You know, they'll have your head for treason if they hear you joking about such things. Regardless, I really am happy that you're safe. I had fun with you.
I should hope that you did. It will be hard not to. He turns to check that the street is clear, turning back to me with a serious look. I have my clan patrolling the woods. I ensure they are out until dawn, searching if necessary. Anything we can do to help find whatever or whoever is doing this. I'm grateful for this distance, and I certainly can't say I've ever had an entire clan of vampires as allies before. I'm optimistic that their help will be of great value to me. That's very kind. After an indecipherable pause, Finn's expression drifts somewhere far away. You know, I was out there just now. I picked up a scent. Something familiar. Familiar how? He steps closer, and there's a certain air of caution in the way he addresses me. as if he's unsure that we're truly alone. I didn't get to hang around, there were too many enforcers, but the blood on that stone we found in the graveyard at the scene of... He pauses, apprehension clouding the way he looks at me. His next words are glum and as dead as his demeanor. Of Hunter's Lane staff. He's testing the waters if the way he holds my stare is anything to go by, waiting to see just how clued in I am. I know about him, Finn. I spoke to Harry just now. Why is it the same blood? That's really weird and mysterious. He might be a vampire, but the look that crossed his face momentarily isn't exactly supple. He casts his eyes away from me, the frown that settles at his soft brow around the edges. He licks one of his fangs, thinking with a forlornness that suits him a little too well. I see. And how did they go? I shrug, because I can't really offer him anything else. I feel deflated and defeated. Not great. He's in mourning, and I don't think he's in the right mind to be making decisions. Finn purses his lips, contemplating my statement.
That's a bold way to speak of your Lieutenant General, but I don't doubt your instincts. I've lost loved ones, and it's never easy. The mind needs time to heal after such trauma, and all Harry is doing is delaying his grief.
Eventually, he throws me a half-hearted smile, but I sense it's something pitiful rather than friendly. I suspect my frustration with my current predicament is glaringly obvious without him having to read my thoughts even.
I'm sorry you've been kept so in the dark. I can sense that you're frustrated, and I don't blame you. As much as I may not agree with certain information being withheld, it truly is for your safety.
There are hunters dying, so I think that could also be me. It's funny because everyone keeps saying such things, but it certainly doesn't feel like anything other than sheer avoidance. He removes a hand from his pockets, running long fingers through his hair with a knowing exhale. Yes, well, I can't excuse anyone else's behavior, but I can apologize for my own. Come by the catacombs when you got the chance. I've some things we can discuss that may help. Though spending some time underground in a tomb sounds less than appealing, Finn doesn't look like a kind of man who lives in a squalor. Plus, any information is valued, and Finn has lived here long enough to know the in and outs of this strange little town. Thank you. I'll take you up on that as soon as I can. He tips his head, encouraging me to follow him toward the wolf, I assume. Come on, I'll walk you home. I'm eager to get inside, and with a few strides I catch up to him, falling in step. I don't require an escort, you know. Everyone seems so set on ensuring I'm safe, but you all seem to be forgetting I was brought here to save the day. Well, supposedly. He purses his lips in an obvious attempt to stop himself from laughing, and I watch the bob of his throat as he swallows the noise.
I'm aware that you require no assistance, but think about the hunters that were killed. They were of your caliber, your rank.
True enough.
The best of the best, as the enforcers love to say. The thought of you ending up like them is not a pleasant one.
You know, I'm wondering what exactly this tattoo stands for. Because it also has a resemblance to the logo of the game, the Crescent Moon.
We may not have known you for very long, but we don't want to see you get hurt. I've certainly grown quite fond of you.
Aww. I try to hide my smile, but it's hard when he's being so wonderfully charming. Very well, but no coddling, understand? Yes, General. He laughs again when he catches sight of the dramatic roll of my eyes, sidestepping with startling grace to avoid the elbow that I launch toward his ribcage. We walk quietly through the street, the cobblestones glistening with frost. The moon is full and hangs low in the sky, as it always seems to here in Lunaris, and Finn exhales sharply to break his silence. I glance at him to try to ask him any of the hundreds of questions that run through my mind. I think he knows, somehow, because he also seems to have something on the tip of his tongue. We stop outside the wolf, the lantern that hangs above the door dark thanks to the late hour. I glance up at the now familiar sign, a scrappy-looking white wolf howling at a full moon, and I laugh. Lynn leans against the mismatched bricks and stares at me quite intently, his eyes unnervingly bright in the growing darkness. What's so funny? You're all mastered at being painfully cryptic, and yet I still feel at home. But I shouldn't trust a single one of you, should I? He turns, checking we are alone again, before he leans a little closer, his voice low.
That's for you to decide. So, tell me, Hunter, what does that tricky little gut of yours tell you about all of this? About us? What do you feel?
I find myself getting lost in molten gold, watching him watch me. A witty response turns to ash upon my tongue. I'm hyper-aware of how close we are, caught by the memory of his hand in mine at the beach, of our lips hovering so close that I could feel his cold breath against my skin. He remains silent, and I clear my throat. So, the festival... He smiles softly, fingers twitching by his side.
I was expecting some brilliant insight into your investigation, but I'm more than happy to discuss our date.
I huff an incredulous laugh, the noise catching in my throat thanks to his bold statement. A date, was it? He feigns offense, clutching his chest where I know his heart doesn't beat. My smile widens at the ridiculousness of the gesture.
I cannot believe that you would dismiss our evening together as anything other than a date.
Oh.
Especially after you seduced me so beautifully.
Ah, so it was us. His fangs graze his bottom lip, and my toes curl in my boots at the thought of what they are capable of. A stark reminder that he's still a creature, and I'm very much a human that kills such things. I seduced you? If I recall correctly, you were the one who took my hand, who leaned in. His answering laugh is enchanting, his nose crinkling, pearly white fangs glistening.
It takes two to tango, as they say. I'm just teasing, though. I do not take offense if you didn't see it as such. I had a good time regardless. I was rather upset our night together ended so abruptly, but duty calls, right?
This time, I really do elbow him, catching him square in the ribs. He's polite enough to let out a quiet oof, but I know he's truly unaffected. My elbow, on the other hand, he grins, all lopsided and beautiful. Exactly, and I should probably be doing many things other than talking to strange vampires in the snow at this early hour. Like sleeping. And yet, here you are. I sigh, joining him in leaning against the wall, my breath turning to mist against the cold air. Your rest day. I wish I knew what it was about him that draws me in, besides the obvious. By all accounts, I should be overly cautious around such a creature, but Finn makes me feel more at ease than I've thought possible. And I need that tonight more than ever. I want to get to know him, to understand why my heart pounds so feverishly whenever he's near. I should head inside. My words sound dull, and I know I don't mean them. I'm looking for a reason to stay right here, anchored in his spot. He sounds positively enthused. I shrug, spurring the old door of the tavern a glance. The sheets are scratchy, I'm just psyching myself up. That's fair. After a very brief pause, he quickly steals his gaze. He reaches out and runs a cool iron finger along the curve of my cheekbone. The etchings flicker in the darkness.
You are quite lovely, you know.
And look who's talking. I cannot resist the impulse to tip my hat in blatant invitation, the way wolves show their submission, baring the column of my throat to a man that could rip it out in the blink of an eye. His cool digit stops over the place where my pulse thrums furiously, and I no longer care that he can hear it, that he knows what he's doing to me. He smells strangely like a dying summer, though I suspect his memories of sunshine are long dead.
Sweet dreams, fair hunter. I daren't keep you from your rest much longer.
No, no kiss. My traitorous body shivers under his touch, and I mourn the loss of it when he finally pulls away. He quickly stuffs his hands back into his coat pockets, as if the temptation would be too much if he didn't. I take a deep breath and I try to gather my wits. I can't seem to find it in me to mind. He smiles at that, and I sense reluctance as he pushes away from the wall, ready to depart.
Ah, alas, you have a town to save. Plus, the night is still young for a creature like myself.
I sigh, staying closer than is probably necessary, craving contact of any kind as I watch his grin grow wider. Right, I really should head inside though, I suppose.
A pleasure as always. And remember, we've got your back. Should we find anything of interest overnight, I'll come running. Daylight permitting, of course. Good night, Hunter.
I return his smile, pushing the heavy door to the wolf open and praying it doesn't creak and wake the other residents. Good night, Finn. I watch him go before I close the door, only the light of the moon guiding his way as he disappears into the darkness. I finally settle up the hard mattress, the cheap sheets harsh against my skin as I attempt to get comfortable. Light from the low-hanging moon pours into my room. I've scrubbed myself clean of any traces of grime from the hunt, and I can't help but feel irritated from the sheer lack of progress I've made so far. I come to the conclusion there are too many secret keepers in this town, and I refuse to feel defeated or to let it continue. Overwhelmed by today's events, I find myself falling into swift and dreamless sleep. Reality settles over me when I wake, a thick smoke that almost suffocates me as I reluctantly drag myself from the almost comfort of my bed. I haven't had anywhere near enough rest, but I must relent. I gather the energy to dress and head downstairs to face whatever obstacles are hastily and inevitably shoved in my way.